about when it
Yeah.
To be fair, those are left it a bit late.
Yeah, so yes.
I came up to
Yeah, you'll get it next slide.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the South Planning Committee here at Shirehall today. We're not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of the alarm sounding, please leave the building and gather at the front of the building. I would like to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Could I ask everyone to switch off their mobile phones, please, in order that those watching and the stream line and know who are speaking, could members and officers introduce themselves prior to speaking. To ensure that all members in committee, at all points raised, and public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. And if such behaviour persists and takes place, I will adjourn the meeting. I now ask the members of the committee to introduce themselves, starting with please.
Councillor Ed Potter, Lowton Division.
Councillor Richard Hoffer, please. Councillor Colin Taylor, Elvley, Cleverly, substituting for Andy Boddington.
Councillor Robert Tyndall, representing the Bradley.
Councillor Caroline Bagnall, representing Broseley.
Councillor Tony Parsons, representing Basin Hill, Colin and Sutton.
Nigel Lumley, councillor for Albright.
Claire Wild, councillor for the Severn Valley, and I'm substituting for Hilary Luff. Thank you.
Then Parker, senior planning officer.
Yeah, Colin, planning officer.
And Jennifer Reid, planning officer. Louise Evans, visual planning officer.
Nick Hickman, councillor for Lay Valley.
David Evans, councillor for Church Setting Craven Arms, and also chair of this committee.
James Felton, solicitor, legal services, project council.
Catholic planning and development services. Ashley Kendrick, democratic services officer.
Get one more councillor for Allcroft. Royal Croft. Great news. Thank you. Because Radcliffe, we got Andy Boddington, substituted by Taylor. Christian Ray is substituted by Roy Allcroft, and Hilary Lapp is substituted by Claire Wild. To confirm the meetings from the last week, minutes of the last meeting held on June the 25th. Do I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Thank you. Secondly, all in favour? Thank you. Public questions? We have no public questions. Disclosure preclusions, please. Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe it's item number 5 on the agenda in front of you. The properties at Redhill. I'm predetermined, so I shall leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickman.
Chair, item 6 on the agenda at the moment, proposed battery storage facility. I'm a local member. I will speak on this and then leave the room.
Thank you. Any other interest, please? No, right, we'll go straight into item number 5, which is proposed development land at Redhill, Shrewsbury. Okay, Louise?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just take this relevant. Was item 7, wasn't it? So we're a bit. Yeah, it's 2. Apologies for that. It will come up in here we are. Yes. Yeah. If the current proposal is for 2 paragraph 84E dwellings, I think I'll use my time to set out exactly what that means. In a nutshell, paragraph 84 of the MPPF provides exceptional circumstances for allowing the construction of an isolated dwelling within the countryside. The current legislation states that planning policies and decisions should avoid the development of isolated homes in the countryside unless, as the case with this application, the design is of exceptional quality in that it is truly outstanding, reflecting the highest standards in architecture, and would help raise the standards of design more generally in rural areas, and would significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. So as you'll appreciate, there's a lot going on in those sentences, and what does all of that mean? Firstly, to be of exceptional quality. Despite there being no explicit definition of exceptional design in this context, it's clear that the paragraph 84 proposal needs to be way out of the ordinary. Not only should it be entirely unique, which raises the question of whether two similar properties can be unique, but the design should also aim to push the contemporary boundaries of construction and design methods. Exceptional quality of design also requires the balance and integration of the building design and landscape design. It's the marriage of the structure and the topography, or the site in this case. Secondly, the policy requires the design to be truly outstanding. By and large, policy tries to reinvent traditions of country manners into something more contemporary, so creating an opportunity for each generation to create its own legacy through outstanding architecture. These proposals must reflect the highest standards in architecture. So to gain approval in the countryside, designing a beautiful home is not enough. The design needs to adhere to the highest principles of architecture and must incorporate sustainability using technologies derived from the site's resources or surroundings. Simply adding PV panels isn't enough, and it isn't innovative or site-specific. Additionally, houses need to be designed with the idea that they are one system that has a plausible narrative. The site location, resources and surroundings informing the technologies and orientation, which then inform the aesthetic and physical manifestation of the building, which then form the way the space feels. Ultimately, the highest standards of architecture refer to much more than just design. Extending into the integration of technologies with the design, the way the technologies are derived and the way the building functions as one body with many elements. These dwellings must also help raise the standards of design in rural areas. Paragraph 84 encourages developments that demonstrate quality efforts that match and complement the environment they reside in. They should aspire to be noticed on a national stage for use of experimental design and technologies. In order to help raise design standards of design in rural areas, the proposal must become an exemplar for outstanding and innovative rural architecture, which can be achieved through the use of particular materials, the adoption of particular methods of construction, or through conservation of the environment. The final requirement listed in paragraph 84 is that the dwellings must embrace its immediate surroundings and find ways to enhance its setting. The term used is significantly enhance its immediate setting. So I think that sets some of the parameters around what it means to be a paragraph 84 dwelling. This is not open market housing in the countryside. It is an opportunity for something that is unique, way out of the ordinary, truly, inspirational for future generations. So what have we got? So here's the site plan of the two dwellings next to a settlement known as Red Hill. And these are the proposed elevations of the first building. Building 1 will have a gross internal area of 794 square metres, including a ground floor, 4-bay garage and workshop, as well as a multi-level garden area incorporated into the design of the building itself, totaling 548 square metres. And of a height of 10 metres with an additional 0.7 metres of roof-mounted solar array. The building will be clad in buff sandstone, accented with contrasting areas of extruded aluminium. Building 2, similar in size. So they're not exactly the same, but they are two similar buildings. This one showing the red tinted sandstone and nods towards the sandstone of the air. This is, yeah, building one, again, showing the elevation, sorry, the floor plans, showing the principal bedroom. Oh gosh, I don't even know what's doing there. Not touching it, promise. Don't know what happened there, sorry. I'll leave that with you. Essentially, we can come back to some of there's some imagery around, yeah, obviously perspective views and whatnot that we can come back to. But yes, obviously those are the proposals that we have in front of us. Members will have the opportunity beforehand to see them in any case. Members will have also been, some of the members will also be to the site this morning, and will recognise that it is a spectacular site and has a history of its own. You've also had the benefit of the officer's report, which goes into all matters in quite some detail. So I'm not going to raise every single matter again here. I'll leave that for the debate. There are 3 reasons for refusal, which is essentially capture that whilst the scheme has been submitted as an exception proposal under paragraph 84E of the MPPF, the proposal does not comply in that the dwellings are not isolated within the meaning of the policy, as evidenced from the interpretation of previous appeals on this matter, and are not of exceptional quality, again within the meaning of that policy. So again, we're not just in the design here. It is that it's got to be of that exceptional quality that's totally unique, and all those matters that I've raised. So as the proposal does not comply with the requirements of paragraph 84E, it's then been assessed against the usual housing policies of the development plan, and also does not accord in that regard. A number of material considerations have been put forward, and the officer's report has given clear reasons as to why these are either not sufficient or appropriate to be taken into account or to justify the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now have some speakers on this. We've got the Councillor Paul Carter. You're speaking on behalf of London Parish Council, and you have 3 minutes to address the committee. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Carter, Chair of London Parish Council, and speak in support of this application. In the past, residents of Redhill have voiced their concerns that the brownfield site that used to be the welding yard would be suitable for large-scale housing or business development. It's in close proximity to Shrewsbury and might be an attractive proposition for developers. Such development would impinge on the privacy and visual seclusion of those properties and completely spoil what has been a wonderfully private aspect. This application seems to be an excellent use for the land that would safeguard the privacy and seclusion that the residents enjoy and remove the threat that future development on the site might spoil their tranquil surroundings. The applicants explained their vision to the parish council and were questioned by Redhill residents concerning most detail of the proposal. We felt this was an application that should be welcomed and recommended it for approval. On hearing that the application might be refused, 4 or 5 Redhill residents wrote a letter of support, and these should be on the planning portal as evidence of their support for a solution to their previously valid concerns. The reasons for refusal that officers have been put forward have been refuted and effectively countered by the applicant's architect and should be disregarded completely. The matter of the £20,000 sweetener for the parish council to carry out works for the good of the parish, although welcomed, in no way influenced our decision to recommend this application for approval. The concerns and worries of the Redhill residents are the overriding factor in our recommendation for approval. We would have approved the use of the brownfield site without it. Looking at the 3D views of the 2 houses that the architect has supplied and reading the design and access statement, we have no doubt that these properties are of an outstanding and sympathetic design that easily satisfy the planning laws for such development. The other reasons for refusal seem nitpicky and only included to add weight to the refusal argument. The architect has, we believe, refuted these most adequately. The aim of the developer is to have 2 large properties on this amazing site that would have privacy and seclusion in a beautiful wooded setting. This aim and land use also maintains the privacy and seclusion for the Redhill residents. As such, we recommend the scheme for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Mr. Carter, please? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now the local member for the ward, which is Roger Evans. Roger, would you come and like to address the committee, please? And you have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm speaking in support of the application as well. I'm a member of the Parish Council and was present when it considered this application. We, all the members present, welcome the discussion, as did the local residents who turned up, and the applicant stated aims to take into consideration comments made by all those present. Following this meeting, the clerk sent in the reply shown on the Shropshire Council's planning portal. The site has been the subject of a number of planning applications over many, many years. Some of the former Shrewsbury and Atcham, some were to the former Shrewsbury and Atcham Borough Council. In times past, it was listed as both a brownfield site and a potential employment site. The Parish Council and I, whilst councillor for the area, fiercely resisted both of these designations, but they were carried through. The site, however, has been of concern to us all, including local residents, local plan, parish councillors, everybody around the area. I note the title of the application as Land at Red Hill. Not as many local residents refer to it as either the former railway repair and welding depot or the flash butt welding and rail storage depot. The site does have a checkered history. The last application was for a construction of 16 houses, later reduced to 12, together with a convenience store. I know there were many objections to that application, but when interrogated, none are now shown as being present, including that of 2 different parish councils who objected to that one. They are, though, referred to in the then officer's comments. Highways also objected to that application. This application is like chalk and cheese. It is vastly different to that one, and also the planning appeal that supported the original rejection. Since then, the site has deteriorated as itemized and shown in comments made by others, including, again, many residents. For this application, Highways, as will be seen, raised no objections to it. Of the other statutory consultees, none raised objections, although Landscape do suggest a design panel look at the application. The houses are different, hugely different, and to my mind are truly, to use the expression that was used by the planning officer, truly of exceptional quality. They are of unique design. They will, to my mind, raise standards of design more generally in rural areas. Dare to be different. I will leave the applicant and their agent to argue over whether the NPPF regulations precluded from being considered. To my mind, they do not. It is, however, good to be different, to show a different form of house, a house, again, of unique design. Originally, yes, I was a little concerned about the design. Was it different? With the added information supplied by the agent, I feel that yes, they will satisfy what I just said. It is significant, it is out of the ordinary, it is different. When constructed, they will satisfy and alleviate any long-standing concerns of local residents. The application is not made under normal settlement policies of Shropshire Council, but is in a sustainable location. There is a good bus service, and this is supported by the council launching the on-demand initiative. It also helps achieve a SAMDEV policy of helping achieve the much-needed aim of rural rebalance, which we all want. I do note the unilateral undertaking mentioned in the application and also in one of the comments. I repeat what the chairman of the parish council said. This has not been a factor in helping or assisting either me or the parish council in reaching our conclusion, but it is very welcome to address issues raised today and in some of the comments. Please support this application, and it is noted that this is an exception to policy but please note the comments made in many of the correspondence and today. It is a unique, parish council supports it, local residents support it, I support it as their local councillor, and to us it is unique design and will raise standards. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Roger. Any questions, please? No, thank you very much. Now call the Barton Parish and you drive for it, please. You're both speaking, you have 3 minutes between you. If you're not speaking, you have 3 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Button here.
Right.
Yep. Hi, I'm Ewan Driver and Managing Director of EDA Limited, a chartered architect's practice based in Shrewsbury. I have been involved with this exciting project since its inception 2 years ago. My brief was to prepare a high quality design under MPPF paragraph 84E. This is a high bar, but we would not have proceeded had we not been fully confident that it could be met and exceeded. Paragraph 84E, to recap, requires that the design is of exceptional quality in that it's truly outstanding, reflecting the highest standards in architecture, and would help to raise the standards of designs more generally in rural areas, and would significantly enhance its immediate setting and be sensitive to the defining characteristics of the local area. The built environment is of public interest, and architectural quality is something positive which meets with public approval. Quality can be subject to a wide range of interpretations. In essence, however, truly outstanding design should give a wow factor and should make a strong statement with the building form relating positively to its function. The design should typically make positive use of unconventional cutting-edge techniques. We consider the design fully meets these criteria, and this is evident from the photomontage images which show how the completed buildings will look. The project has evolved over time and is informed by its setting. A key driver has been to reduce the development footprint, to minimise the impact on the open mosaic habitat and general ecology of the site, and retain as much wild space as possible. The solution was to adopt a fully linear plan over 3 stories with rotated floor plates, accommodating biodiverse food gardens, eliminating the need for formal ground floor garden areas. The low profile flat roofs reduced the massing and help the buildings blend with the surrounding landscape. The access road has been reduced to a minimal width with passing posts. The previous proposals for the site indicated the development of up to 16 dwellings along with a convenience store. The current proposals represent a huge reduction of this number, and with approval being sought for 2 dwellings only. The houses are in the west part of the site. There is no impact whatsoever on existing dwellings in Redhill Drive, who have supported the proposals. A new permissive right of way to the south of the site to connect Redhill Drive with an established public right of way to the west is proposed. The outer face of the buildings are formed from sandstone with buff to building 1 and red to building 2, reflecting the local vernacular. Sandstone facades are accented with contrasting areas of extruded aluminium with random vertical pattern. Areas of floor to ceiling, clear triple glazing.
Thank you. Can you just sum that up, please?
Sorry?
You want to just roll sum up?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I've got 1 paragraph left. Basically, it's an old industrial site, it's been derelict, and we're seeking to create a low density development with outstanding design that truly respects the ecology of the site. And the scheme will bring this old site back into viable and sustainable usage and will ensure proper husbandry of the site for now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Any questions, please? No, thank you. Right, you'd like to speak. Tony?
This, I went on the site visit this morning to look at this particular site, and it is a very interesting site in terms of what may or may not be possible to do with it. I came back from that site visit to look at properties that have recently been approved under section 84E and what those designs looked like in Leicestershire and in Suffolk and in other areas. And I think that the design that we've got here could probably meet that exceptional design standard. Looking at some others, Frisbee Farm in Harborough and New Lodge Friston in Suffolk, they don't look to me to be significantly different to these particular buildings. But I think I'm not going to be able to support the application because of the fact, in my view, on reading that section 84E, it applies to a single development, one house. And I looked at that to see if there'd been groups of housing that had been passed under that particular section, and I couldn't find any. They're only single houses. If this had been an application for a single house on the plans that we saw, then I'd support it, but I don't think that I can because of that section 84E at this point in time.
Yes, I wonder, sorry, I wonder if James Felton could comment, please. Sorry, it's a very fast forward this, but under that section of the NPPF regarding a building or building, there seems to be, as Tony Parsons has said, really quite essential part of this debate. I would like to speak about none of that after this question has been answered. I'm so sorry. I think I've
Probably more appropriately directed to Louise, police officer.
sorry, I can't.
Oh, sorry, Louise. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I think that clearly the paragraph 84E does say dwelling.
Dwellings.
I think it said dwelling.
Dwelling.
So as I said, and there's the element within it about obviously whether it's truly unique. And as I said, obviously I think the case officer, which wasn't myself, but within the case officer has made the point that how can you have two things that are unique that are the same? So yeah, I think there is an element of that, and whether that is sufficient. I think that the pertinent parts of paragraph 84E are that we have got something here that is truly outstanding. This can't happen just absolutely anywhere. This is bespoke to this site, and so if there was a narrative around the fact that there are two of them for a particular reason, that meant something, I could possibly understand that within the realms of paragraph 84. But as I said, obviously, as it stands, yes, there are two, and this is clearly a matter that does need to be debated as to whether that then meets with that element of the policy. I think there is a whole host of things that we can debate the individual words over, and whether it complies on that or not. So, yeah.
Thank you. The answer I wanted to know whether this subparagraph of the NPPF could comprise more than one building. I'm not sure that I've really got the answer that we need. I suspect that it needs to be legally interpreted as to whether it can only be a building, or can it be two buildings. I think to leave it undecided is not correct. And if the case officer is or her line manager considers that it only applies this exemption, call it that, to a single building, then that is really the end of this. Tony, this should be refused, and I don't think there was any need to go into whether or not the design is unique or outstanding or extraordinary or anything else. So I'm not quite sure that we've actually got the right thing to consider. Having said all that, and maybe other colleagues on the committee may or may not agree with me about whether one building means more than one building or not. I do think that the design is certainly unique. I know of another building near Ditton Priors, which was given permission to build, and that design nowhere near approaches this. And I think it's entirely a subjective view to my mind, this reads well. It is different. It is exciting. I personally, and this shouldn't irritate, I prefer the buff coloured sandstone to the slightly pinker one, but that's me coming over all arty. So if I could have a pronounce as to whether this applies to one building or possibly two, then like Tony, I shall have to not support this, which I think is a very, very great shame. And if it means deferring whilst we get legal minds to get round 84E, I'm quite happy to propose that.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Councillor Higney,
Well,
please.
can we just come back on
Okay.
Would you like me to read, is that what you're asking? Would you to read the paragraph?
No, you've read it.
Yeah.
I know, I just. If you consider it applies to only one building, I'm going to repeat myself, I know. If you consider that it only applies to one building, 84E, then why wasn't it? Doesn't it say so? Sorry, this can't go any further because it only applies to one building. Bang, and we can leave out all the subjective discussion as to whether it's high enough quality. Is that point clear now? Because I fear I haven't made it clear enough, have I? Does everybody else understand?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I gather my colleagues.
But that is the interpretation of the policy, isn't it? So as in the policy that I can read to you that says, paragraph 84 says, planning policies and decisions should avoid the development of isolated homes in the countryside unless one or more of the following circumstances apply.
Yeah.
Go through them all. E, the design is of exceptional quality in that it is truly outstanding, reflecting the highest qualities, etc., etc. So there is nothing that specifically says it has to be that, but generally
Has to be what?
it has to be one dwelling, or it could be more than one dwelling. Said generally, other members have been able to find that there haven't been many examples, or potentially any examples, of there being more than one of these exception dwellings. So it is a matter for us, and you here today, as decision makers, as to whether you feel that the development of two properties can come under paragraph 84E.
Yeah, can come in, please, James.
Through yourself, Chair, if it may assist. Based on experience elsewhere, Councillor Tyndall, these schemes usually come forward as one dwelling. And that is the norm, probably in about 90–95% of cases I've seen. However, in some instances, there can be more than one. And that is part of the justification that members are invited to determine on as to whether this is exceptional in the case that there's been two dwellings. It's part of this exceptional, truly exceptional design, the fact that there are two of them. So the policy doesn't preclude two coming forward, but as a whole, if the two are of exceptional quality and members consider that, then it potentially satisfies the test. So,
Can I come back a bit? If you're saying that it could be two buildings, then I'm happy to propose that we accept this application.
Councillor Potter coming first, please.
Yeah, but I think that's quite interesting. If we're saying that it could potentially be two, because there needs to be a circumstances why it's two. I look at the site and the nature of this site being effectively a long, narrow, previous industrial use, potentially was brownfield, don't know. Better than having a lot of houses down there, I suppose, for my mind, if it perhaps falls into the 5% or the 10% where there could be two applications, because if this was a great big square open field in the countryside and you were putting two in, I'd probably say, no, that doesn't really mean, but because of the nature of this interesting site with its former uses and the access to it and the fact that it's a long, narrow sort of strip, it perhaps meets potentially with my approval.
Thank you. Councillor Higney, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad I went on the site visit this morning because is the site unique? Yes, definitely. Is it isolated? Again, most definitely. For those who didn't go on the site visit, it is a large open space. I mean large, like probably 0.6 acres of open area. surrounded on all its borders by tall trees, which makes it completely hidden from view, in my opinion. Is it suitable for 2 dwellings rather than just one? In my opinion, again, yes, definitely. I think just one dwelling there would look in a way out of place. I mean, part of the idea of 84E, from what I understand it, is that they're supposed to look in a way out of place because they're not supposed to be the normal. They're supposed to be absolutely unique, and perhaps there should be no other building like it. And these two are similar in design, but not the same. So I would be happy with that. It has to complement the local landscape and enhance its surroundings, as the officer said. I think these will, the way that they're done. When you look at the designs and the proposed diagrams we're looking at, I think the greenery hanging off the levels, if it's done to that sort of standard, makes it's a sort of a hanging gardens of Babylon appeal, which I like, having studied the 7 ancient wonders of the world. It's got to stand out from the crowd, and I think the design of both these buildings will stand out from the crowd. I think it will enhance that area, which could otherwise just be left to grow wild, and eventually nature would take over. So far from sitting on the fence, I'm moving towards liking this design and thinking I would support it.
Councillor Lumley, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In the rebuttal document, it's stressed that this is not isolated. So that's either the architect or the agent saying it's not an isolated place. And looking at the map, it's not. It might have trees all the way around, it might be alongside, but it's not isolated. So then that effectively goes contravenes 84E. They've made a lot about that. Mentioning all the greenery, I think if all architects or all plans always had all that greenery over them, everything would look so much nicer and better. But unfortunately, I don't think that hides the fact that it looks a very 1960s building. Sorry, I'm not an architect, but I don't see the appeal. I do like modern, but I'm not sure that necessarily depicts it. What concerns me the most is the fact that they're not unique, because there's one that they're just down the road, they can see each other, and they're not unique. They're two. So I won't be supporting it. I'll be stepping with the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, sorry I wasn't able to make the site visit, listen to the comment with interest. But I'm in agreement with the previous speaker there about it being unique. It reminds me of when I moved to London some 55 years ago. There were things of that design in Pimlico. You might as well have picked it up and brought it here and put it in that railway side. As far as that, so I'm sorry. I looked at it as soon as that came up, and I thought this was supposed to be something really unique and really totally different. That's an exception. I'm sorry, I can't see that that is totally unique and totally exceptional. It is just something like, yeah, it's different, but here. Every site has its merits, every area has its merits, and yes, it is probably totally unique to the area that we're talking about. But as for a standout, unique building, or something that would make it want to say, you ought to go and see that down there. It's a real standout prize winner or something. No, I'm sorry, I can't see it. I'm struggling to find reasons why I should go against what the officers have recommended.
Councillor Bagwell, please.
Yeah, I'm sort of struggling with this one, I have to be honest. I wasn't able to go on the site visit today. I wondered, do we have images of the buildings without all the greenery? Because I think that would perhaps give a clearer view of what we're dealing with here. Yeah, see, if we look at that, it's a very different prospect, I think. And I totally accept that, you know, it is possible to have lovely overhanging greenery, which would soften the rather stark appearance of the building. And I think the roof terrace is a lovely idea, but we can't guarantee that that planting is going to go ahead. We can't guarantee that there are going to be lots of overhanging greenery and so on. And so that would be a very different appearance to the finished product. So I'm still struggling with this. Thank you.
Councillor Parkman, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, as I indicated it when I spoke the first time, I do like the design. So I'm taking a different view to Colin and to Caroline, but I still feel, and I heard what James said about section 84E, but I'm still feeling that this doesn't need section 84E. And so I won't be supporting it, but I will abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Tyndall.
Yes, I appreciate what Colin has said, but I think Pimlico context isn't the context of here, Red Hill. We've got the Welsh Pool to Shrewsbury railway line on the north boundary or northwest. And then I commented, if you blank out that lowest slide, the one without any fenestration apart from the top floor, the other elevations look, I think, remarkably handsome. That lowest one does detract, but the reason I'm told by the architects is that it faces into the boundary. I hope I've got that right, and therefore offers no prospect of a view or anything else like that. So if you like, whilst normally ones like to orient buildings so that the principal rooms face south, southwest, there is a reason for not doing so on this particular design. The ground that we walked over site is actually made up. It's obviously the old hardcore land surface of where it was the railway rail welding plant, and it's long and thin because I gather they welded together sort of 800 meters worth of rail at one time and then dragged them onto bogies and set them up on the railway line. So I think it's got an interesting industrial history. And I also agree with the comment that I think two buildings there is certainly better than one. And I think the two buildings together, and they're reasonably close together, not one end of the site and the other one at the other end of the site, they do actually establish, I can't quite think of the word, but they establish a sense that, yes, we are here, we mean to be here. So I try not to sound woolly, but this is all very subjective. Anyway, that's what I feel.
You come back in the week or?
You mind?
No.
There we go. Thank you very much for all the comments. I think they're obviously all really useful. I think one thing that does appear to be missing all the time in what's being said is, what is it about that particular design that you think is relevant to that site that is completely unique and innovative, that this is going to change the way how that's sort of what 84E is talking about. It's not just, is it a nice design? It's about that marrying of that site to that design and what the relevance of those two coming together is.
I don't know whether that was a rhetorical question.
Well, I'm just putting it out there that I don't think that's necessarily. Sorry, yes.
I'm sure I was there to be looked at. But I think that the design of this building, and I'm now a mere chartered surveyor, not a member of the Royal Institute of British Architects, but I would say that does meet the very high bar of the MPPF. I think very interesting design. I think the materials, again, there's a rather sort of curt remark that the local sandstone isn't in much use in the vernacular buildings. Well, the only vernacular buildings were fairly modern brick houses, which we saw on the way up to the site, up Red Hill Drive. So I think that's an irrelevance. I think if they're going to use stone that is either already quarried or to be quarried from a source of sandstone. I think that that's great.
Just to be clear, I don't think they are using that. It's a nod to the kind of sandstone. It's not necessarily a local source. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I felt that.
I've just got a quick question, if you might, Chair. Will it be visible from the railway line? No. I was trying to think, but the site being unique, I travelled that railway line to university at Aberystwyth, and I can't remember seeing any other properties quite like that along that route.
Okay, everybody, the same? Anybody want to say? Councillor Albert.
Others didn't benefit from the site visit. So basically, it's always a judgment, so balancing that, looking at the information and reading all necessary papers. Probably like others, watch grand design from time to time and putting planning hats on. Well, how the heck did that get planning permission in that particular area? Beauty is very much in the eye of the beholder. It's certainly unique. Whether it meets with everybody's tastes, not sure. How do you fit something into an industrial type landscape that absolutely works? It'll work for some, may not work for others. On that balancing act, I think it is unique. And so long as we can say it's compliant with policy, I'm minded to support.
Okay. Okay. Let's have a proposer, please, for the application. Councillor Tindall. And do a seconder, please.
Second.
Your second. Make a proposal for the application. Go ahead against opposite recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Sigley. Giving you some reasons why.
Yes, reasons why.
Yeah, we need the reasons why we're going to approve it.
You have bloody mind. No, can I be serious?
Yeah.
I think that having accepted advice that this development can comprise 2 dwellings, not unique, not just one. I believe that part of the MPPF is satisfied. I also think these are very well designed, extraordinarily well designed buildings for this particular site, this particular context. And as it's a brownfield site, I think this is probably the best possible use that it could be put to. I don't know whether that's adequate. If you wanted to add anything.
The only thing I would add to that is that I feel the particular design of these buildings and the size of them, i.e. both large residential dwellings, complements what is a large present unused site, and the nod towards using local stone or cladding that is made to mimic the local quarried stone adds to the site location.
Okay.
I think that.
Right, can we now take it to the vote, please? Let's go on with an approval for the dwelling which takes place. And reasons why. So if I can ask to take the vote, please, James.
Thank you, Chair. Just go round members individually. Councillor Aldcroft.
For.
Councillor Bagnall.
Against.
Hang on, are we quite sure we're voting for?
Voting to approve.
Or my motion?
Yes. So I just double check there.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Councillor Aldcroft. You're still for?
I'm still for.
Yeah. Councillor Bagnall still against? Thank you. Councillor Harting? Not here.
Sorry, I just wanted to take that out.
Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Hignett.
For.
Councillor Hoffer.
For.
Councillor Romby.
Against.
Councillor Parsons.
Abstain.
Councillor Potter.
For.
Councillor Tyndall.
For.
Myself, Chair.
4.
6 4.
Is there any other elements that members want to bring to account? So obviously there's a lot being. In terms of delegation or conditions, as I said, there's an awful lot on this site that has been put forward, that is said you could be minded to take into account in the planning balance, or in the sound of things, it said it hasn't even come up. So are you quite satisfied that we don't ask for anything?
Well, and the comment was made by Councillor Bagnall about there's no guarantee that the vegetation will be planted. I think that surely is going to be a condition.
Yeah, so there's nothing about the permissive path or the additional contributions. There's nothing that we.
I don't know that they are terribly relevant. I mean, the permissive path is.
You need to have an answer before you.
I think just to clarify on vegetation, it's one thing to allow it in the ground, but I don't think we would be very confident in trying to enforce a condition on the building itself. I think in the, a landscaping plan for the ground, yes, but for the building itself with overhanging plants, no, I don't think that's a condition that we would be able to enforce.
Okay.
I think just to be clear that it's delegated to us to deal with the conditions.
I would recommend that. Yeah, we're happy with that.
So we can ask
Yeah.
those contributions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the unilateral undertaking.
Yeah. That was it's entirely up to members, isn't it? That's the proposals that are before us. Is it a case of so that's the difficulty in the report. It does set out that some of those things perhaps shouldn't be taken into account because they're not reasonably related to the development. Are you happy for them to be not taken into account now?
Well, such as.
So, such as there's a permissive path that is proposed, that essentially it's a permissive path, so there'll be no requirement for that.
I mean, if it's a permissive path, the permission can be withdrawn. So, it's neither here nor there, in my view. I mean, it's great to have it. I'm not denying that for one moment. But a permissive path means what it says. It is by permission of the landowner.
Yeah. So that's where our public rights of way officers were asking that was made into a consent order, and we could potentially require that by condition if it wasn't. But as in, clearly, if none of these things were relevant to your decision, then they shouldn't be attached. That's
they're not relevant.
Okay, that's fine. So it would just be standard conditions.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Bringing up. Yeah. To go to biblical classes.
I don't really need it.
Is that working?
Well, I don't know if you put it on the slide because it's just it's images. Because if you put it on this current slide, that'll go to slideshow. So I mean, I just probably better like that because so I might close that. Yeah, I think it's better to have it on the side. Thinking of something else.
Now we're going to undertaking.
I like it.
Oh, nothing but.
I'm just going to review my computer so that the next speakers, the next system is being done from. But yeah, I can do that quietly.
Okay, now go to Oswestry, bungalow, share agreement ownership, item number 6. Thank you.
Don't have a PowerPoint. Yeah, because I can't get my laptop working with PowerPoint. Are you able to put it on yours? Yeah, no, or somebody else, right? Okay, that's fine. Does anybody have yours? Literally just not. Actually, sent me the number, doesn't she? Actually, sent you a link.
Well,
yesterday.
Today.
Sorry, check that.
Anyway.
Gotta go into. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know, no, yeah, so yeah, we'll go into committee goal, but yeah, so committee.
My daughter. She had a lot of that. Oh, well.
I'll just go on to another one.
Slide. Yeah, mine's slide eight.
Sorry, David, thank you very much. Getting flicks on the computer was frozen.
Yes.
What is it like? It's just got that. It's been going around for. There we go. I'm just going to close the whole thing back and hopefully.
Oh, I know. I'm just really that engine factors. Right, take some. No, don't talk about. Oh, that's changing. She just did lots and then. Sort of, it might slightly longer, maybe shows and other regions. She says it's later or by the shadows. Yeah. She wants to ready. It's like
So this application, it's an application for reserve matters. The outline was approved by planning committee, and the minutes of that meeting have been made available to the agent. This slide shows the layout that's proposed for the two plots, and also gives context of the site. I believe members did visit the site at outline stage. There's a couple of key features up there. The site's outlined in red, and to the rear, you can see the grounds of the listed church. Along that rear boundary is also the boundary of the conservation area. So the site is outside the conservation area, but it's bound along the rear boundary. There's Tara, which is the neighbouring dwelling to the east, and that's a single storey bungalow. There's also context which are referenced, which is Smithy Gardens, Camden Cottages. Smithy Gardens is development of semi-detached single storey properties, and Camden Cottages adjacent semi-detached. Screen shows the two plots, the two dwellings proposed and the design on plots 1 and 2. And this is being provided by the application. It gives indication of street scene and how dwellings would appear within the context of the site. One of the conditions recommended in the report is that render isn't used on the upper elevation. It is all red brick to with the appearance of the nearby properties. The next couple of slides are just going to discuss impacts that have been raised in representations. And first of that is the historic impact on the views of the listed church building. Concerns were raised by the parish council and the local member representatives of the conservation team have commented that it should be assessed through an historic impact assessment. On the late representations, the agent did provide an updated planning statement that did discuss the views of the church. So that not significant. So based on site observations by the officer, show some photos that were taken, and the plan down the bottom of the X's mark roughly the spots that I was standing when I took these images. And these are to represent what I've described as snatched views of part of the church building through the site. And what the concern is, if there's single story that's there, you have a view from one aspect of the corner kind of plotted of the tower and the roof of the church. If it was 2-story, that view would be blocked. But the point I raised is that I can see that, you know, a snatched view once I move slightly around the corner or to the adjacent side of the road, the trees do obscure the view of the church. So whether members have to consider whether that view of the church through the site is significant or not for the historic building. The views, you know, further along have been restricted by the Smithy the Smithy Gardens development. If you move, there's an access way there, Smithy Gardens, and the roof profiles do intercept the views of the church from there as well. Next point, which was the point raised and the point of discussion, is whether the proposed dwellings fit in with the character and appearance of the surrounding area. I have included a couple of images of different properties surrounding. There are 2-story properties along this section of the road. The immediate property to the east tower is single-story, but there are other 2-story dwellings along this section of road. The bottom image shows relatively recent property of 2 stories, which is, if you see the greenery, the site that subject to this application is just to the right of that. So you've got some greenery, then the access into Smithy Gardens, and then there's a 2-story bedroom dwelling running on the other side. It's going to sit the scale, 2-story properties on this site. There are, you know, so there are other 2-story properties. The frontage of the two together is not dissimilar to the existing bungalow that's there. The scale is seen in the bulk, the depth of the property, which extends back into the site. And when you look at the kind of the site layout, the two dwellings of this scale could be accommodated and still have parking to the front and rear curtilage. It would be a smaller rear curtilage area, but in the urban context, it's officers consider that's acceptable. The last point I'm going to, last 2 points I'm going to raise to discuss is impact on the amenity of the 2-story dwelling next to a single-story dwelling para. I've included the site layout, and you can see that it's a faint line, but you can see the outline of the Tara, the neighbouring property, and the way it's sited on the dwelling. On the site, the bulk would be balanced, partly in line with the sidewall of the neighbouring dwelling Tara, which would kind of mitigate that depth into the site. There is also the separation distance of about 3 metres between two, which is further mitigated. And as you can see from the image, there's a garage on the nearest side of the elevation, so there wouldn't be any overshadowed habitable room with this siting on the neighbouring property. The last point I was mentioned is, and briefly, is that other concerns were raised regarding the congestion to do with especially a pick up and drop on off time on this section of road association with the school, which is nearby. This is noted by discrimination officers and the Highway Authority, and while it is noted, this proposal does include on-site parking. So cannot see that on-site parking for 3 dwellings per 3 spaces per dwelling of this size would exacerbate that any highway congestion that currently exists. For those reasons, in line with the officer report, the recommendation is one of conditional approval.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a statement to be read out by our solicitor. from Mr. and Mrs. Kelly. If you get you that, please, James.
Thank you, Chair. This is a statement on behalf of Mrs. Margaret Coney. We understand completely that there is a principle of development on the site. We're not objecting for the sake of it, but we are concerned about the impact on us and our home. The reasons are: one, this development is going to be overbearing, with two houses dwarfing us and blocking out our natural light, especially in the afternoons when the sun comes round from this direction. I believe we do have a human legal right of Light Act 1959 20-year light rule to that direct sunlight. The sun rises in front of the houses and travels around to the far side of these proposed houses. These houses will block the sun to our side windows and garden for much of the day, especially in the winter. Two, our bungalow was built set back from the existing west bungalow so that there was not a light problem. West bungalow was originally longer and stretched across our front garden. Planning made sure that when it was halved and our bungalow was built, it fitted with the conservation area, the view of the church and light was not an issue. Three, our privacy will be invaded as they will be able to see into our living room from the rear windows of the house. Four, we are also concerned that the plans indicate that they may come closer than the 4 metres we believe they should leave when a new build is planned next to an existing home. Five, these houses are not in keeping with the village, as they are too tall and too close together. The other houses in the village are set further apart if detached or are semi-detached or terraced. Six, this site should be a bungalow, like for like or semi-detached bungalows. Seven, we are an ageing population and there is a very strong need for retirement bungalows which would free up the family homes. Eight, parking situation is chaotic and dangerous now with the drop-off and pick-ups from the school. This will only intensify. There are pedestrians walking past and small children will be hard to see. The entrance display is considerably larger and will take up more of the parking space for the school. The cars already stretch down as far as Willow Cottage and the parish hall. Please take these points into consideration to help protect our light and privacy, but also to allow other people to live comfortably in this development. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. And I call Councillor Heather Kidd, the local member, Steve. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that you remember much of the committee came and did a site visit, and the minutes of the meeting actually stated that single-storey dwellings would be more suitable on the plot and would fit in well with the existing street scene. Whether you think that the housing in Camlad Cottages, which is opposite where you take the picture of the church, are relevant or not, I think the numbers of people who live in Camlad Cottages actually think it is quite important that they can see a vital part of this very ancient village. It is an ancient village and therefore deserves some respect. Lord Herbert of Cherbury was placed in 1575. Many of the buildings in the village stretch that long back and therefore we have that conservation area. What we and the villagers and the parish are concerned about is that any development does not make a fundamental difference to the centre of the village. Should not begin to have development which is urban. And these houses look very urban in comparison with those houses there. There are 90 houses in the village, 20 of which are detached. All of those detached properties are separated well from the others. And you can see on the map and on your report that came to committee that actually that's the case. Everything else is semi-detached or terrace. There is render in the village, but it's not half render. It's top to bottom render. And when the flats in Camlad Cottages, which apparently are not allowed to have a view of the church anymore, were knocked down and new housing was built, that housing specifically was designed to fit with the rest of the village, so that it replicated some of those things that you see around the rest of the village. That is not in the conservation area either, but West Bungalow, but right up to the conservation area. It is a very sensitive site there because the houses in Smithy Gardens, which are the ones next door to West House, at the back here, those bungalows at the back were built as bungalows and not houses when the planning permission was given, because again, they wanted to maintain that view of the church. Yes, the trees have grown, but in any case, if any development on this site goes ahead, those trees will come down, or they'll have to come down, because you can't develop on that site with leaving one of those trees there. So, as you will have seen, and you did see, in fact, most of the buildings here are a bungalow here, and all of the bungalows at the back. There is one house further down next to the parish hall, across the drive into Smithy Gardens, which I've referred to, and that is the same height as the parish hall. If you're looking at the setting for these two houses, the setting is bungalows. The rest of the village that way is housing, yes, it's ex-council housing opposite. But what the village is concerned about is that this site is definitely overdeveloped because the rest of the village is has a much greater spread. The houses don't fit with the village very well, and they're very, very tall. This is have actually explained about the sun moving around, and it does move that way round, and it will block the sun directly to their garden. And yes, they do have windows down the side of the house there, and one of them is their living room window. So as the sun comes round, it will get blocked into there. But when I was there the other afternoon, the sun was coming in that window. There will be significant points where that sun will no longer come through, because West Bungalow at the moment is much lower and much further forward. When we come to the parking, as soon as you have 3 cars at each house, there will be no turning space. And the cars going in there will have to reverse out into the B4386. These are 4-bedroom houses, and the chances of you having 3 cars on site are large. And I will just show you what happens at school time. This is the village at school. There are now 111, plus probably another 2 on the school site. Most of those children come in by car. So it is a significant issue, and the large display will reduce that. All I know as the local member is my life will become very difficult indeed at drop off and pick up.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Big Weller? Yeah. Right, we should be fair. At the bottom, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask, it doesn't make it clear in the report. When the bungalow was demolished and they said there'd be 2 dwellings built instead, were the applicants advised perhaps it would be better to put 2 bungalows there? Or because it seems to me that actually what we as a county are crying out for is probably 2-bedroom, 2-bedroom small bungalows. I mean, that would be immensely popular. But I just wonder where the guidance came from to build the houses as opposed to 2 small bungalows.
Yeah, it was raised with the agent in minutes from the last committee, which did mention single bungalows on the site. But obviously, as the planning officer, we have limited control over what is submitted, but we have to appraise what is submitted. So the minutes were made available, and and that they've also seen all the representations regarding the single story on the plot. But it is then that submission is being submitted.
So what was the original outline decision? Was it not clear enough? Or where did they get the idea from that they could put 2 houses instead of 2 bungalows?
The original decision for the outline, all matters were reserved, so it's just a principle of 2 dwellings on the site. So that was what was approved. And then everything else in terms of the scale, the appearance, landscaping, etc., was reserved for this application. So the principle of 2 was approved, and the minutes where members, I can't remember exact wording, but it did refer to single-storey properties, was made available to the agent.
Okay. Yeah. So just to be absolutely clear,
Chairman, can I excuse myself, not for the reasons that you're thinking about. I think it was not funny.
So they were told that 2 bungalows would be better, but they chose to disregard the advice. Is that correct?
Well, as a plan, there was no pre-application discussion. It was so there is a limit to what planning officers are involved prior to the application coming in. You couldn't tell them specifically what to submit. The scheme that they submit is their discretion, and this is for us to appraise that scheme. So all the information was made available to them, but you couldn't predetermine the application by saying, and specifying only single story dwellings.
Yeah, so I think I was here. I remember quite a lengthy discussion about this, and I think the reason we wanted this to come back to committee for reserved matters was because there was a fear that a larger single property or 2 larger properties would come as an application rather than the single story, which we talked about, the overdevelopment, we talked about the effect on the neighbouring bungalow, all in the original committee decision. And I understand what officers are saying, that you can't then specify. It was pretty clear from what our discussions, I think, as a committee, that 2 bungalows or 2 single-storey dwellings were the preferred option to enable the principal development to be set, and that's what sort of expectation from the committee to come back forward was. But I understand from an officer point of view, because if there's no pre-app discussion, that it's up to the agent and the applicant to bring that forward. But my recollection was from the committee meeting, 2 single-storey, which we talked about the noble need and the impact on rural areas as being of a great benefit. Though slightly disappointed to see 2 4-bedroom, 2-storey properties on this site following that original committee decision.
Thank you, Chairman. Not obviously a participant in the previous discussions or anything like that at all. But just looking at what we had in front of us, looking at the slides and everything like that, this just strikes me as being totally out of scale, totally out of character for the position that it's actually in. Someone's proposing to demolish a single-storey building and put 2 4-bedroom houses in it. Totally out of character to the rest of the immediate area. Surely it's going to stand out from the source though. And I would move that we go against the officer's proposal and refuse this application. Overdevelopment. Ridiculous stuff.
Dr. Speak.
Yeah, an application of mine went to Northern Planning for a replacement dwelling of a bungalow, and it was refused on the fact that it was too big for the original bungalow that was demolished. Well, surely if you take what's the square can officers provide me with a detail in terms of square footage of the bungalow that's being replaced? This is far bigger, isn't it?
I couldn't give you the exact one, but yes, it does have a larger footprint. Cumulatively, the 2 together would have a larger footprint than the existing bungalow that has got permission to be demolished, but I couldn't give you the exact measurements.
So if it was a family, for example, that were wanting to replace their dated bungalow for a family home, but it tends to get refused because of the scale and the size is bigger, surely that could be taken into account here, not?
This is a different, that would be in a rural, it's a different policy. That would be in a rural context of a replacement dwelling, whereas this is in within a settlement boundary.
Right.
So there is a different policy that this is assessed under.
Definitely, please.
Chair, the principle of 2 dwellings on this is already established. Problem we've got is the developer wants to put 2-storey dwellings rather than what we did talk about in the last meeting, which was bungalows. So would 2 bungalows fit onto this plot? Looking at the plan in front of me, the plot of land we're looking at is about the same size as 2 of the properties on Smithy Gardens. So yes, 2 bungalows theoretically would just about fit onto that plot. Whether we provide enough parking area for vehicles, and you certainly wouldn't get 2 3-bedroom, perhaps maybe you may maybe get 2 3-bedroom, you wouldn't get 2 4-bedroom bungalows, so you probably have similar properties. There are 2-storey dwellings nearby, but obviously nobody has a right to a view, do they? But I do think that 2-storey dwellings in this context, with the views of the church at the back and the open space up to St Michael's Church, do seem out of character. I'm just not sure. I'm sort of sitting on the fence a bit here. I'm not sure whether we've got enough good material planning reasons to refuse this.
Well, please.
Yeah. Can I just ask the officers? So, heritage and historic aesthetic, they could have an objection. So if there's an ecology objection, it's automatically refused. Pretty much. That's my experience. But you have a standing historic objection, but you chose to disregard that. So these are history and architecture, so highly important to us. I don't know where you get that balance from. Thank you.
No, it's important, and each case of its merits. In terms of with this site, it wasn't an objection. The conservation officer didn't object to the development. It was an objection on insufficient information in terms of appraising the site in relation to the historic environment. And it is the officer's view that there is, that appraisal, that they have provided an updated planning statement in the AREPs, and it's outside of the conservation areas. It's particularly the impact of two-storey height buildings obstructing a view of the church. You could argue that they could plant very large trees that could cause an obstruction, but officers felt that sufficient information had been submitted along with the officer visiting the site to make a to be able to appraise the impact and come to a conclusion on that.
Can I just come back on you there? The church is actually grade 1 listed. And there have been issues about the design because, to be fair, the design there doesn't look in keeping with the local area. It looks like it's off one of the housing estates on Otley Road. So it doesn't really fit in with the grade 1 listed, where there is historical unease. I mean, that's, that to me is important.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that what we see here is just too much. It's too sizable. I understand, obviously the last meeting I was involved in, and we did sort of indicate that 1-storey buildings would probably be the best here. But I mean, if you looked at that, if the detached house on the left and slightly more was a 2-bedroom, was a semi-detached house, again providing 2 residents, you would not fill the whole of that gap from the view to the church if you just had a semi-detached house rather than two semi-detached. I don't know, Nate, I think, you know, not minded to sort of turn the application down, but I think we should defer it and get the agent maybe to have a look at the proposal again, bearing in mind the issues that were not only raised at this meeting, but were raised at the previous meeting as well.
Anybody else wish to speak, please? Anybody want to make a recommendation?
Chairman, I imagine I can't.
No,
Yeah, I think, to be fair, that we ought to probably defer this application, because hopefully the applicant is here and listening, to give them the opportunity to actually submit a better design, probably single story. So that's what I would propose, and also that more discussions are held with the heritage team as well, because I think that's important.
Okay, can I have a second for that, please? That's about what? Right, so we've got the proposal on the table to defer it, back to the developer for 2 weeks. Something that we
Yeah.
Get taking the county out to the church and the developer next. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
And if you come back on that before I get the vote, please. Right, okay, take a vote.
Councillor Aldcroft.
Four.
Councillor Bagwell.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Hignett.
4.
Councillor Hoffer.
4.
Councillor Lumby.
Against.
Councillor Parsons.
4.
Councillor Potter.
4.
Councillor Wiley.
4.
Yourself.
4.
That's down the chair.
That's how I approve the grounds. Okay, we'll take a comfort break now for 10 minutes. Give us 10 minutes. Over.
Yeah.
Right, comfort break now and we'll resume in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Got my top.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Then we go on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is the proposed battery storage facility and planned use installation. Okay.
Good afternoon. This is a resubmission of planning application reference 23-01031. It was refused for 2 reasons under delegated powers on the 15th of August 2023. Firstly, it was refused on the basis of no sequential assessment being submitted with the application. Secondly, the proposal was unacceptable in terms of landscape and visual impact. This latest application has been submitted to address these 2 reasons for refusal. The 0.71 hectare site on the north side of Bath Mews Midsterley is located in countryside outside the development boundary adjacent to it. It's flanked by existing built environment to the south and east and by the Midsterley Brook to the west. I understand that members viewed the site as part of the visits for the previous committee in June. The application proposes a 10 kilowatt battery energy storage system with a connection to Malehurst Primary Substation, which is approximately 1.4 kilometres to the northeast. It would be located on a raised platform and a flood storage basin positioned within the site to provide an enhancement in terms of floodwater volume storage. As amended, the platform is reduced in length and footprint, further distancing it from the residential receptors in Bath Mews to the south and the public right-of-way to the west. The number of battery units has been consolidated from 4 to 2, and the PCS units and NV skids contained within a single acoustic enclosure. These have also been recited further from the residential properties and the PROW. The on-site substation is also included in the layout. Boundary fencing and access track and associated infrastructure are indicated on the site. Access for maintenance and construction is proposed through an existing field gate at the northern end of Bath Mews, so the southern end of the site. An amended landscaping scheme with bolstered native species tree planting of an additional 13 trees is indicated between the platform and residential properties to the south. This slide just shows the platform elevation without proposed fencing, but obviously fencing is proposed. Next slide, please. These elevations show the platform with the 2 metre high green palisade fencing as proposed. The ground underneath the compound will remain permeable and down to pasture. In terms of landscape and visual impact, the development has been amended since the previous refusal. In summary, and as already noted, the raised platform has been reduced in area from 1,072 metres squared to 710 metres squared, a reduction of around 34%, and located at a further distance from the residential receptors in Bath Mews. The compound security fencing has been reduced in height from 3 metres to 2 metres. The number of battery units has been reduced from 7 to 2. The number of PCS containers and NV skids have been reduced from 4 to 3, placed in a single acoustic chamber. Also, native tree planting is indicated on Revision C of the landscape application. A landscape and visual appraisal Revision A has been submitted in support of the proposal, on which the SD landscape officer has commented that it is appropriately scoped and executed, and that the methodology is appropriate for development of this scale and its likely effects. It's confirmed within the LVA. It's confirmed that the LVA is sufficient to reduce overall visual effects to an acceptable level. even though 3 dwellings will experience moderate adverse effects in the short term. Therefore, the amendments made to the raised platform and best design, coupled with the comprehensive landscaping scheme, would address the second refusal reason applied to the previous delegated refusal. With regards to the first refusal reason, an updated sequential exception test has been submitted, and this application, which demonstrates that there are no potential alternative locations at a low flood risk from the site proposed within the 1.5 kilometre radius identified as a viable connection area for Malehurst substation. Wider sustainability benefits to the community from the proposed development have been demonstrated in accordance with paragraph 170 of the NPP Act. These being additional electricity power, a flood storage basin constituting a betterment, and significant biodiversity net gain. Therefore, the plans and documents submitted in this application provide sufficient information to overcome the first refusal. Other considerations which were previously found to be acceptable and therefore did not constitute refusal reasons have been briefly addressed in my committee report as matters raised again by public representation. To conclude, battery energy storage system compound would make a significant contribution to achieving a sustainable low carbon future and to improving energy resilience and security in line with national and local planning policy and objectives. The proposed landscaping, additional planting, biodiversity enhancements and access arrangements at the site are acceptable. Appropriate flood mitigation and betterment, noise mitigation and safety measures have been designed into the scheme. The information contained within the submitted sequential and exception test, the landscape and visual appraisal and the landscape mitigation plan is sufficient to overcome to immediate refusal reasons. I received comments yesterday evening from the Environment Agency, which have been circulated to you this morning. The EA welcome the provision of the flood storage basin and have no objection to the inclusion of such following a review of the sections presented in the application. We also acknowledge the provision of flood storage and underneath the structure, following the raising of floor levels to make the development safe. Whilst not part of the calculations, this area would provide additional storage benefits in terms of flood risk reduction. As such, members are requested to support the approval recommendation for the scheme. 2 pre-commencement conditions are included in the recommendation for a schedule of landscape maintenance and the provision of an emergency response plan. So that would include potential incidents of flooding, fire and pollution. The Environment Agency have also recommended conditions including to secure flood storage compensation to set the lowest finished floor level height, which are not as yet added to the recommendation. A further EA condition to keep the voids underneath the structure free and unobstructed in the lifetime of the development is included in recommendation already. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to this one. Mr. Doug Morris, please. Represent the Minsterley Flood Action Group.
If you'll find that Jones.
Doug Morris and Doug Jones. Yes, right. Okay, I've got both names.
Just point that.
Okay, Chairman, this is the committee. That's you.
Okay. Thank you. I had already stated, my name is Doug Jones. I'm a riparian owner and member of the flood group. And I've spent 30 years in the regeneration industry. I just would like to bring you straight through to something that was said in the opening statement, and I'd like to refer you to Hydrox Best Steep or Test dated the 18th of March 24, We will draw your attention to the comment on page 5 with reference to Maylhurst Industrial Estate, which would be suitable for a proposed development, but has insufficient space. This statement is incorrect. The proprietors have confirmed that they were approached before COVID-19 with a view to siting a best unit within the estate, and the site was located close to the grid line which serves Minsterling, and remain open to negotiation. There is no issue with flooding there, and it is within 250 metres of my own home. A further 2 windfall sites have also been identified within the search area, which is 1.5 kilometres from the substation at Maylhurst. I return back. The proposal to build the battery storage facility is on the narrowest area of the existing floodplain. See figure 3, Midsbury Best Sequel and section test dated the 18th of March. There is no opportunity to increase this width. This area floods due to the overtopping of the levee boundary to the site and the A488 within the village from the river, and the pluvial flooding coming from Bath News and Ray Valley Food Factory. I'd just like to advise you that in Storm Babette, Ray Valley Foods were severely flooded, shutting the plant for 6 days at a cost of £160,000 to get up and running, and their insurance excess is 250,000. This plant was deluged with contaminated floodwater. 100 people are employed at this plant. There's a lot more that I could say, which is already in statements that have been written there. But those are the key issues to this debate.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any questions, please? No, thank you very much. Let's go on. Councillor Susan Lockwood, please. And you have to leave this with their security. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Vice Chair of Municipal Parish Council. I'm also Church Warden at Holy Trinity Minsterley, and I'm Chair of CPRE Shropshire. All of these concerns are within those 3 capacities of what I do. I would like to raise your attention to, due to the recent change in national government, the MPP Act will certainly be reviewed. Therefore, decisions should not be made on this application until the review is published. All 4 recent housing developments in Minsterley have exacerbated the drainage problem within the village. Discussions are still ongoing between Minsterley Flood Action Group and Shropshire Council to the drainage problem. Further severe flooding could cause subsidence of the ground in proximity to the Minsterley Brook. For fire risk, there's a quote that says, best thermal runaway events are not fires in the traditional sense of the word, but self-sustaining chemical reactions that have gone out of control. They pose a unique threat to firefighters. Battery storage facilities should not be proposed and constructed in close proximity to established communities, homes, businesses, busy roads, schools, natural watercourses, areas of outstanding natural beauty. I dispute the point made of minimal existing traffic. The A488 is a major thoroughfare from the A5 to the southwest of Shropshire, with huge lorries coming off all the adjoining B roads 24 hours a day during road closures, accidents, and congestion. I have witnessed school children at the bus stops outside the pub and on the opposite side of the road getting off a bus with traffic taking around the bus.
This is a huge problem for the school children. The local fire station depends on volunteers. How long after an incident occurs will it take to get volunteer firemen, ambulances, police on the scene should there be a major accident with battery storage? The London Grenfell Fire Report is unsettling. During the floods of late 2023 in Minsterley, no assistance was immediately provided for all residences and businesses that were affected by the flash flooding. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Thank you very much. So on the local member now, which is Councillor Nick, isn't it? And you have 5 minutes to let you go, please.
Thank you, Chair. South Korea is a technologically advanced country at the forefront of lithium-ion battery storage sites. They have had 23 battery farm fires in 2 years. The recent battery fire in Illinois, USA, burned for 3 days, and thousands of nearby residents were evacuated. And I mention these recent facts not to scaremonger, but to emphasise how important it is to get the location of these sites right. In the committee report, 1.2 states that this site is on agricultural land to the north of Bath, Minster. It should also make clear that this is located in the middle of the village, as members of the committee will have observed on the site visit. 2.1 states that the site is within flood zone 3. It is actually within flood zone 3B. And I think the B is very important because it designates a flood zone intended to act as a floodplain and hold back the water, allowing a slow release, reducing flooding in adjacent areas. Any change to the flow of water in this area, whether caused by trees, boundary fencing, concrete stilts, or ground level changes, could result in worse flooding on land and properties adjacent. On the 10th of this month, rather belatedly, the Environment Agency started sharing their concerns over possible flooding of this area and asking for more details of ground levels. They do state that the site is contentious, and I agree with that. Their even later response, yesterday, still emphasises the possible risks in a flood and fire event, and it does support access plan for emergency vehicles, which should be available. But I think this would be impossible to guarantee in the event of flood. In his reply, email dated 18th of July, the head of engineering at Abbey says, and I quote, "Note that the way in which the site floods from the Minsterley Brook during the lower return period events is somewhat a little unusual. In other words, this is not a normal floodplain, partly because it's located so close to homes and businesses." His last paragraph states, "The 1 in 100 year plus 43% climate change event differs from the 1 in 30 year event in that the channel capacity is far exceeded and therefore much of the locality is inundated, with water flows and depths covering a much wider area." I assume that this 1 in 100 year event was as recent as 20th of October last year, when 8 businesses and 12 houses were flooded. On that date, the entrance gate to the proposed site was flooded to a depth of half a metre. The southeast corner of the site was flooded to a depth of more than 1 metre. The A488 was closed to most vehicles. Informative number 4 of the officer's report states that the applicant should take account of the National Fire Chiefs Council guidance for this. And I mention this because it can only be an informative. Solar farm battery units are not covered by the control of major accident hazards regulations and are actually unregulated under UK law. For this reason, Shropshire Fire and Rescue have to be reactive instead of proactive. They do state at 4.1.5 in the report that BESSes, when affected by fire, pose a significant environmental and safety hazard. And I will highlight a few of the comments in those guidance suggestions. 1, safe access and egress for fire service vehicles in all weathers. 2, at least 2 separate access points to the site. 3, suitable systems for containing and managing water runoff based on water application rates. 4, environmental impact measures to include prevention of ground contamination, watercourse pollution, and the release of toxic gases. 5, a perimeter road and unobstructed access to all areas. And 6, areas within 10 metres of BESS unit should be clear of combustible vegetation. And of course, there is a standard minimum spacing guidance of 6 metres between the units. There's lots more on that report. In conclusion, I support renewable and low carbon energy. I own 2 electric cars and I haven't purchased any petrol for over 2 years. I have a lot more actually. I am a member of Possibly Climate Emergency Action Group, and I'm an active member. I take part in the meetings and I support them. Core Strategy Policy CS8 and policy MD8 of the Standard Plan seeks to encourage infrastructure which adapts to climate change, including renewable energy generation, where this has, and this is important, no significant adverse impacts on visual and residential amenities, natural and heritage assets, landscape, character, and any other cumulative impacts. So I just asked members to consider if this relatively small scale project provides enough benefit to outweigh the possible large scale disruption to Minsley and the Minsley Rock. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, well done. Any questions? Go forward.
Yeah. But you have to wait for Nick to go or you stay.
Okay.
I
can take the answer.
So two things. The one is if you look at the drawing.
There's another speaker, yeah.
Oh, pardon?
That was any questions.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. He's gone. I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
You wanted to get asking back, no? Ask him the question. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll do it at the right time.
This is the right time.
Oh. Yeah, you won't be coming back in.
Oh, right, okay. So can I ask the opposite question, please?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wall, but you missed the start of the officer's report when this matter was being presented, so you aren't able to vote on the application.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've eventually going to miss the first 30 seconds, but can I ask a question all the same?
It's a similar sort of scenario, I'm afraid.
Oh, right.
I do apologise, but it's just to protect the robustness of the.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thank you.
But Nick Williams, please. To contact the committee and you have 3 minutes and you work from Harry. Thank you.
Afternoon, members. Battery storage is key in achieving net zero, enabling energy from renewables to be stored and then released during times of peak demand. This will ensure homes and businesses can be powered by renewable energy and is essential in speeding up the replacement of fossil fuels. The officer report confirms that the previous reasons for refusal have been addressed and this application should be approved. The sequential test confirms the site to be suitable and the only site available for development. In contrast to what's been said about the alternative available sites, nothing has come to the market for sale or to let during the period the applicant's been looking at this site, and a grid connection has been secured for this particular site on that basis. The raised platform has been reduced by over a third and significant additional landscaping is proposed. The landscape consultee finds the proposal acceptable. The landscaping will also screen the unsightly factory buildings from users of the passing footpath. Planning policy allows for battery storage in the floodplain as essential infrastructure. One of the first battery sites in the UK was approved and built in the floodplain, and several others since. It's not in dispute that the site floods. What seems to have been missed by some objectors is the proposal will provide a betterment in floodwater storage through the compensation basin, which has been welcomed by the Environment Agency. The EA have confirmed that development will be safe for its lifetime and that flood water levels could be reduced as a result of development. The applicant is engaged with the fire service and the site has been designed following their guidance. 2 access points to the platform are achievable around the platform. The applicant will continue to work with the fire service to ensure their requirements are met. The proposed planning condition requires an emergency response plan, which will make provisions for flooding and in the extremely unlikely events of fire. The plan will adhere to EA guidance and will ensure no pollution with robust mitigation in place, including sealed drainage. The battery units are fully automated and can be switched off prior to and during flood events if required. The wider community sustainability benefits include the batteries can store enough electricity in one cycle to power 2,500 typical local homes for a day, more than Minsley and Ponsford combined. The flood storage basin provides a significant enhancement. A significant biodiversity net gain will be achieved. The £10,000 community benefit fund will be provided to the parish council. Jobs will be created during the construction and operation of the site. The proposal could provide cheaper, reliable power to the neighbouring factories, which are high energy users and large local employers. The proposal will also contribute through business rates. The comprehensive case officer report has considered the objections and found the development acceptable. Benefits are far-reaching. Planning policy and government guidance is supported, and as such, we encourage members to follow the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions regarding? Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. Right, members. Ed, please.
When it comes to things like this, I always look at the agricultural line. I see it's grade 3, so I'm quite happy with that, as opposed to some applications we've had in the past. The flooding, again, is a bit of a concern, but actually, I presume this is in the Ray Valley catchment, in terms of flood and all the work that's being done in that catchment down to the Severn, where it's ultimately where the water ends up. Any improvements to hold water, slow water flow in our area, because my division is in the Ray Valley catchment area, is very welcome, and is a benefit for Shrewsbury and the flooding in Coleham. So having read the report and listened to the officers, any fears I had initially have been somewhat allayed, and I am minded to support the application.
Thank you. Barton, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I mean, from my understanding of the description of this application, it was dealt with under delegated powers. There were 2 areas where there were 2 reasons why the application was refused at that stage. It appears that both of those reasons have now been dealt with, and therefore, like Councillor Potter, I'm minded to support the proposal.
Councillor Lumley, please.
Yes, I benefited from a site visit on this, and what is abundantly clear when you stand there in the middle of the field is just the size of the factories all around you, and the minimum impact it would have on the houses at the bottom, to the point where you can hardly see them, and certainly with all that landscaping. You would be worried about it being in the flood area, however, because it's on the stilts, and then rather impressively, because of the flood mitigation that they've built into it, which will take water, it'll actually lessen the risk of flooding. So I don't think there's any net negative about flooding. So I probably will be supporting it.
Okay. Any other speakers, please? No?
I'm happy to move.
You're not going to move a recommendation. We'll move it into the next minute and condition to be dealt with by the topic. Okay, we have proposed on the table to accept the officer's recommendation, and we delegate the conditions for the officers to so could you please take the bench?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Aldcroft.
4.
Councillor Bagnall.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Huffer.
4.
Councillor Lumby.
4.
Councillor Parsons.
4.
Councillor Potter.
4.
Councillor Tyndall.
4.
And yourself, Chair.
4.
It's unanimous, Chair.
That's unanimous. Thank you. The formal recommendation.
I do, Miss Anne. Yes, I'll take it through the door. It's on your
Okay, we next up to lands at different house farm, Billingsley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I'll try and keep this short. I'm not one for who. The application is for an affordable dwelling located to the west of Highley and Leatherson. That's in that direction. And if we can show the location on the slides. The reason it's a committee date is called in by Councillor Butler, the Parish Council support. The recommendation from Debt Officer myself is for refusal. The refusal reason is one refusal reason, and it is for the siting of the dwelling not being within near to a settlement. We committee have had this discussion many times before, and I would say in this circumstances, in my professional opinion, at the time I've been here at Shropshire, this particular affordable dwelling is the most isolated site I have seen for one. We as officers fully accept that there is flexibility within the planning policy and the adopted time affordability housing SPB for interpretation on where settlements are and where they end. If we can just go back to the overarching image. As you can see, there are no dwellings, and those who've been on the site visit today should have recognised that there are no dwellings immediately adjacent, and the nearest one is 300 metres away next to Hill Fields, which again in itself is an isolated dwelling within the countryside. The closest settlement for which I have been quite reasonable, and I consider in determining where that ends, would be Netherton, which would end roughly where Borden Bridge is, so the river there, I would consider to be the edge of that settlement where it's quite open knit. That's about 900 metres away from where the site is located. Our adopted policy and our housing strategy includes affordable dwellings, and we're all obviously in support of providing affordable dwellings in the right places within the county. It is absolutely the case that to support this dwelling in this location would be a direct violation of policy requirements on the top of affordability housing SPB, and will represent a complete departure from what forms our housing strategy and what tries to protect the countryside that we also value and love within Shropshire. It would leave, if this was permitted, it would potentially set a precedent for uncontrolled, isolated dwellings in the countryside, albeit of an affordable nature, and would only leave the affordability requirements, which are dealt with by the housing labelling team, in controlling who is in these dwellings. So on that basis, it is absolutely recommended by myself and officers this application should be refused. In regard to, just for the sake of balance, in regard to its design, its form, there's no objection. In that regard, there's no objection to the need that's been put by the housing enabling officers. But the siting and the maintaining the integrity of Shropshire Council's housing strategy and policy is absolutely paramount when deciding and determining this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to statement to be read out by the solicitor from William Butler, local member. Give you that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Following is a statement from Councillor William Butler regarding planning application 24/01654/FUL, erection of affordable dwelling, Tip House Farm, Billingsley. I write in support of the above application. I would have been in attendance today, but I'm unable due to annual leave booked some months ago. I believe the core issue to this application is how you define a settlement. The affordable exception site policy was first developed by South Shropshire District Council when I was there circa 2007, and it was later adopted by Shropshire Unitary Council. The whole point of the policy was to enable developments for local people that was in keeping with the existing evolution of the settlements in the rural landscape. If you look at the map in the report, you will see within sight of the proposed development Tip House, cottages, Norton End cottages, Norton End Farm, Pancake Farm, Hill Fields and Crumps End. This is only in the immediate vicinity. This is what a settlement looks like in a rural landscape in South Shropshire. All those properties have evolved and have done no harm to the area and are a natural evolution of the rural settlement within the parish of Kinlet, and it is mirrored right across South Shropshire and makes South Shropshire what it is. On your journey back from the site, did you note how the houses were scattered all along the main road to Bridgenorth? That is the style and character of this part of the county. I also note, although the address of the site is Billingsley, it is in the parish of Kinlet, whose parish council fully supports the application. The report also makes no mention of how close it is to Kinlet, probably within a mile. In Kinlet, you have a primary school, nursing home, public house, village hall, cafe, and both the site and Kinlet is on a regular bus route to Kidderminster and beyond. In my time on the planning committee over the years, we have supported and passed many exception sites in rural areas like this, and even sparser areas which have proved to do no harm to our countryside and rurality. As a council, we have the Shropshire Plan to let everybody live the best life possible. This application will enable a young local person and family to stay where they've grown up and continue to contribute to their locality and maintain the stability and sustainability of local settlements like Kinlet and enhance the evolution of their settlement. I urge the committee to support the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. Diana Thompson, please. Or Ben Lucas. And you're the agent, and you have previous with this.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Committee. The application is submitted under the guidance offered in the Council adopted supplementary planning document for affordable single plot exception sites. In this case, it has been evidenced that the applicant is in housing need, has the required strong local connections, and has a genuine need to live in the immediate area because of family commitments and employment. As such, Ben wholly meets the eligibility requirements of the policy. In relation to the site, the Council's adopted policy offers the following advice. A settlement always comprises a group of houses occupied by households from different families. The policy explains that where the number of houses is small, or in this case, where the houses are dispersed, it is a combination of both these factors that determines whether the dwelling constitutes settlement. The policy further advises that because the settlement is a relationship between different properties, the limits of the settlement are defined by where the relationship peters out. This will be further informed by the settlement pattern and by the views of the local community. The map accompanying the report doesn't identify all the properties. There are at least 13 houses within proximity to the site. These are quickly Tip House Farm, 1 and 2 Tip House Cottages, Hillfield, the Old Forge, 1 and 2 Birchview, Fleet House, Pool Cottage, Norton End Farm, Pancake Farm, Wool Mill Cottage and Crump's End. They are dispersed. Whether or not a site is considered to be within or adjoining a recognised settlement and or within the sphere of influence of a nearby market town, in this instance highly, is a matter of judgment. The policy emphasises that this judgment should be informed by the local member and the parish council, who are best placed to understand these relationships within their communities. In this instance, both the local member and the parish council support this site. There is a significant deficit of affordable housing available for local people within the parish of Kinlet, as acknowledged by the parish council's comment. This application, if allowed, will enable a young local person to stay where they have grown up and maintain the stability and sustainability of this rural community. It is hoped, therefore, that the Planning Committee will approve this application for an affordable dwelling made in response to identified local needs.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. What would you like to? Billy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is a particularly isolated proposed development. The nearest cottages and farms were substantial distance from this. But in a way, you know, if this development were allowed, obviously it would turn over that particular policy. But I don't imagine that this development, if it were accepted, would cause any significant harm to any other residents or the area itself. It's a single story proposal, and it's hidden behind a substantial hedge from the road. But I don't think I can support it because of the fact it is such a significant distance from what I would regard as being a community.
Members are probably aware of my general views on this, but I actually started to warm to allowing these sort of houses in circumstances where they were close to a settlement. Now, you've heard the officer giving his report that this is probably call it the worst one, but certainly the one that's the most away from the policy. Members, we have to have a policy, and we have to. I've noticed in the last year we seem to be straying further and further away from what officers are recommending. This is isolated and not part of the settlement, and I urge you to sort of take a step back. It's not always about getting another person in an affordable house.
Thank you. Captain Block, please.
Whereas I respect Councillor Lumby has his opinions, I also have mine on this, so it'll be no surprise to the committee. I look at the location, yes, isolated, but so are the rest of the dwellings in this area. Would it not be going against the nature and character of the area to start grouping properties when you look around, the vast majority of them are isolated, the nearest one, Hillfields, being isolated? I think it's important that particularly within South Shropshire, with the nature of our county, we're not Northumberland where we have vast wide open spaces. Our open rural landscapes are dotted with individual dwellings, often associated with the industries named agriculture in the area. And it'll be no surprise that I am minded to support this application and would be happy to move if someone was to second it.
Thank you. Councillor, please.
Chair, I've been on this committee long enough now to listen to applications for properties like this, for settlements and dispersed settlements. The officer is quite right. This is the most dispersed settlement, if we could even call it that. I don't have to try and look at. It is dispersed when you need binoculars to find the nearest property to it. I am concerned, as other speakers have said, that although we want to try and support people to stay in their area, I'm concerned that this is so isolated that it might have been better even if it had been considered to be in an area right next to the farm or right next to one of the other properties. But it's so isolated in that area where it is, and I was on the site visit, and admittedly, if it's a bungalow, you'd hardly barely see it behind the hedge. But I don't think that is a good enough reason to support it, I'm afraid.
Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's we either have a policy or we don't. If the policy is against it, you go against that, and the drip, 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 drip factor comes in as where do you actually call a stop to it? And I just think that somewhere or other you've got to draw the line, and I believe this is the line too far. With regard to requiring local housing and everything like that, I note in the report you're 1.3 miles from the southern edge of Highley, which have got quite a raft of affordable housing of every description. But I wouldn't consider that to be a great big distance for someone to be able to travel. Highley have a school, a doctors, and a leisure centre. It's got everything you require, and I'm sure they'd probably be gravitating to there or towards Clearby Mortimer. You know, if they want the housing, there is housing available. I don't believe we should be breaking the policies apart to allow this sort of development.
Piddle, please.
Yes, I think case like this needs just to be careful with the use of the expression of violation. I mean, the committee is perfectly entitled to take an opposite view to the officer. So I really think it's a little bit over the top. Having said that, I think I would agree with Ed that acting the settlements in South Shropshire is such that you do get dispersed houses, and that is what policy recognises. I'm the first to admit that this is borderline, but the affordable policy exists to help local people, regardless of age, to find somewhere they can build at a less than market value. So I should support this, and I will second Ed's proposal.
And from Halford, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think William clearly would have been here in person if things would have been different, speaking in favour of this application. We've heard from the parish council strongly in support of this recommendation. I do believe that we need to give additional weight in these circumstances to the local community and the local member where they feel things are going wrong. I just can't help but feel that officers' recommendation are out of kilter with decision making made by this committee over a long period of time. We are under housing need pressure, both open market and exception sites. This is why we've constantly had to go against officers' recommendations. It doesn't give us any pleasure. This is serving a local need, invariably young people, but not, you know, it's not ageist in any way, shape, or form. If we do not help our younger generation into the housing market, and this is often the only route for them to get into it, I believe we are doing a disservice. So it gives me no pleasure in going against an officer recommendation. Again, in my thinking, in my support, it's already been seconded, but I'm happy to throw my weight behind this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to respond to or listen to the discussion. In regard to officer recommendations come from policy, which is what Shropshire Council have adopted themselves. All our personal positions on whether we issue or housing, etc., we are making a professional recommendation based on policy. That's not us trying to prevent housing. Absolutely, we are trying to support as much as we can for dwelling, but it is that policy that Shropshire Council and Shropshire members have voted for and adopted, and that is what we're making our recommendations based on. In regard to the site, I just want to raise another 2 points really. In response to the policy being violated, as I termed, which may be quite an aggressive approach, but I consider that to be the case. It would potentially create the circumstance where anybody can buy a field, and if they have the local connection and meet that requirement, then they can build a house on that land. Yes, it will be subject to Section 106 and affordable requirements, but that is the potential for not following the policy and the potential impacts that could cause. That sounds quite extreme, and that probably is, you know, the real extreme example, but that is where, if we don't follow the policy that Shropshire Council have adopted, we could end up. We do have policies for sporadic development in the countryside, isolated dwellings of an agricultural nature and as an agricultural need. We don't carte blanche say no to any individual dwellings in the countryside. Yes, there's individual dwellings around that area, but that's historic development. Pre-1940, 45, we didn't need planning permission, and that's with every town country, it's off on my head. You didn't need planning permission, so there's developments there, and there's other circumstances which bring development forward. But to not follow the policy in this circumstance would lead to a effectively controlled through Shropshire Council allowing this sporadic explosion of isolated dwellings in the countryside.
Councillor Tindall.
Yes, when one reads the policy, it is deliberately framed in a loose way because there's no red boundary sites where development will be given subject to other factors being accepted. And the whole nature of the affordable housing policy is its flexibility, its ability to site houses where planning permission would not otherwise be granted. And I remember a previous senior planning officer when I said, oh, case officers generally recommend refusal of these applications. And he said, well, it's largely because the policy isn't governed by a development plan. Case officers tend to weigh on the cautious side. And that is why we have accepted planning applications on many occasions where the case officer has recommended refusal. So I'm not scared about contravening policy. That policy is there to be flexible.
Yes, just a comment on flexible. Officers fully accept there's a flexibility to the policy. We approve affordable dwellings in our assessments, delegated, they never come to committee. Obviously, most of the applications that come to committee are recommended for refusal, and that's maybe where the impression comes that we refuse. Officers take a flexible approach as much as we consider reasonable within a policy to facilitate affordable dwellings, and also in consideration of the approach of the committee, and not necessarily bringing things that we know are probably on balance acceptable. But in this particular case, it is particularly egregious, and that is why I'm being quite firm in regard to the kind of impacts on policy. Yeah.
Like your proposal.
I think Rich,
Can I come back, Chair? Thank you, Chair. I listen to what officers say, but I'm still of the opinion where the overwhelming view of the parish council, the local member in this instance, member of the cabinet, who full sight of the policy, sat on this committee more times than I care to remember, is given his sufficient weight and support to this application. I'm going to be, if nothing else, I'm going to be consistent with my thinking. Officers may feel they have to be consistent with their decision making within policy. This is why I repeat myself. I believe policy is out of kilter with the decisions of planning south and have been for some time.
Okay, you made a proposal, we're going to go out for the recommendation and approve the application. Councillor Tindall. For officers delegated condition for the officers.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
So therefore, James, will you take the vote, please?
Reasons? We have some reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Why members think. So for me, interpretation of the policy and looking at the nature and the characteristics of this particular part of Shropshire, the fact that properties, the nearest properties all around it are isolated properties, it fits within the character, and it would be against the character of this area to start clustering properties when this is not part of the historic nature of this particular area. That's my reasoning behind that.
Yeah, I think that sums it up.
Just the point there that historic development patterns of areas isn't written with the policy.
But that's the reason given.
So this is voting to approve this application for the reason by Councillor Potter. Councillor Aldcroft. Or Councillor Bagnall.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Hignett.
Against.
Councillor Huffer. Or Councillor Lundy.
Against.
Councillor Parsons.
Against.
Councillor Potter. Or Councillor Tindall.
Or
And yourself, Chair.
Or
That is 1, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against, so it's timely.
I go for the previous recommendation.
That one's passed, Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, that gets done.
That's no pass.
Sorry.
That's gone along with the recommendation from Ed. Okay, we're now going to appeal decisions. I believe these are from Lucy's. Thank you, from Lucy. Our next meeting is August the 20th, Tuesday, August the 20th. I'd like to thank all the officers today for their input in our work. I'd like to thank you for turning up as a committee and those for turning up on the site visits. Always your safe journey out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's not too bad.
Not